That's great.
They gotta get off this.
Morning, everyone. I'd like to call the August 19th occupancy
Don't
tax committee to order. Need a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting. Motion made by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor. No. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Privilege of the floor and public comment. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As I mentioned, one of the last times at this meeting, I look at this committee as a board of directors. And what I'd like to do is just reinforce some of the comments that I've made before about OCTAX. And I would like us to think about a way to take some of these funds and reserve them for some special projects, for some major event, not a major event, but maybe some infrastructure. What we did with North Creek and Johnsburg for the sewer is going to create a huge influx of more occupancy tax potentially to us. And I think what we need to do is kind of put a limit on what the municipalities get, not to say that they shouldn't get what they're receiving today, but going forward to take some of the increases in occupancy tax and reserve that for some additional projects that the county might come up with. When we met with the business community, that was one of their major comments: think big. We just don't have the resources to be able to think big because the money is always being spent. So what I'm asking for you to consider going forward, and I know there's a resolution changing some 2007 resolution to say municipalities got 1%. We all know that they've been getting 25% for some time. But I would really like to see if we can find some way to take some of that money and create that reserve so that we can do something big. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. Thank you. Anybody else? We have 5 resolutions in front of us. The first one is a resolution to approve the funding of the annual events in the amount to be awarded for 3 consecutive years. You want?
Yep, I will jump in, and I just want to make sure that it's annual signature events, so it's not just annual events. And so at the request, we have developed a new job code under signature events, and that job code would fund these events that are before you. And these are long-standing events that have been a staple to the economic drivers of tourism, the tourism industry here in Warren County. And so they are presented as such. The Balloon Festival for 100,000, Lake George Winter Carnival for 75,000, World's Largest Garage Sale for 60,000, Adirondack National Car Show for 50,000, and the Americade Motorcycle Rally for 50,000. This would allow them to better plan, because they will know on an annual basis that they don't have to apply for these dollars, but they'll get them. So it'll allow them to better plan for an even larger event, and even be able to partner more quickly with both the CBB and the county to bring more visitors to their events.
Post-events numbers still?
Yes.
Nothing changes with
So
that?
they are still required. This does not change the process of being reimbursed for those dollars. And therefore, they must go through the appropriate process to upload the information to the platform. And again, as a reminder, this is a reimbursement across the board. Doesn't matter whether you're a signature event or an event that gets awarded through the platform. Everyone has to spend the dollars first and then be reimbursed based on the information they provide, i.e. Invoices and proof of payment.
And if the event changes in that time period, if they could still come to the board and ask for more, correct? To come to the committee and ask for more if they needed it?
In this particular resolution, this is the funding that they're
Okay.
getting,
Yeah.
and this funding will remain in for 3 years.
Okay,
That does not mean that someone doesn't come back, just like any other resolution that we've passed. Doesn't mean that if things change, they come back to this committee and look at making an amendment to the existing contract. However, what is being presented right now is funding these 5 events, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, for 2026 year and 2 additional years after that. Let me make sure I read that correctly. Yes. Thank you.
Need a motion to move this forward? Motion made by Supervisor Patchit, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any further discussion?
I will let my motion stand. I had a question, though, not a motion.
Well, okay.
I'll
well, I want
let
Further
it-
discussion.
Yes, please and thank you. So I just wanted to get a little bit of background information, if somebody can explain, like I was just reviewing these awards for the year of 2022. And so I'll just go through the top 3 here. So for this year of 2026, I see the Adirondack Balloon Festival of $100,000. In 2022, I see I see the award being $40,000. That's a $60,000 increase. I see the Lake George Winter Carnival in 2026 being $75,000. And then I'm coming over here at,
It's an old resolution.
is that not accurate?
No, no, it's
Okay,
very accurate.
okay, good. So then I see $50,000 here. So that's a 50% increase. And then I'm seeing the world's largest garage sale at $60,000 for this current year. And I see the garage sale being $28,000. That's over 100% increase. So I'm just wondering, how did we get from point A to point B? And what does that history look like? And what is that a good use? Well, I think we all know a lot of these big events, signature events, are a good use of funds, but it begs the question, how did we get by on about half the money in certain events before?
Great question. And so a lot of this is a couple of things. Things have changed with some of those events. Some have grown. Actually, in those particular 2 cases, the both of those events have grown. Those are awards based on past and resolutions that have been, and applications that have been brought before this committee in those particular years. So that was their request. But we also look at the results. So for example, them submitting their receipts. And some of those receipts are higher than what, because they also have to submit a budget. So we're noticing that some of those receipts are higher. And therefore can allot award of more dollars. Also, there's the ability to partner with our office as well. So then they partner up some dollars and we do some dollars as well. So there's some co-oping there. But a lot of it has to do with based on what they've reported in the last years and our office looking at those reports on the increase in number of attendees, overnights, things like that. I can't give you a specific on each individual event, but those are the pieces that we took a look at in order to make some of these recommendations. The signature events are staples. Many visitors, a lot of visitors recognize these events by name and recognize them as being here. And so it's almost like we want to utilize their name as well to drive awareness of our area.
Winter Carnival added an event, didn't it? Winter Carnival add something last year?
Yeah, so that's a great example. So Winter Carnival was increased last year because they brought in a lumberjack event that will definitely be coming back again this year. That was a very well-known organization tied to that. So they were able to bring in additional, and they had 2 days, not 3, I think it was just 2, but of activity. So it warranted overnight stays to see the entire event.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question, Mr. Patch. So in 3 years' time, do you anticipate some of these events having a 50 to 100% increase all over again?
In dollars or attending?
Dollars, because that's what we're talking about. That's what I cited was
Yeah.
dollar increases.
Yep, not necessarily because I believe that except for in the 2 instances that you refer, a lot of the events have received a lot of the same dollars over the long period of time. And therefore, by not having an increase over a long period of time and all the prices going up of different things, we're hoping that with these a little bit larger awards, it would take the heat off a little bit, for lack of better words. So I don't anticipate increasing these dollars. I would have to look at what they're reporting. If their costs go up a lot, specifically the nonprofits, and that's 2 of the events that you would reference. They don't make any dollars. It's all passed through in the event of what's being run. So, and do know that if they don't submit dollars to get reimbursed, those dollars won't be awarded 100%. Won't be, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Those dollars won't be reimbursed 100%. So they have to spend the dollars in order to get the dollars back. So we anticipate the event growing because of that. And we've looked at the price, the cost factor into that. Did I answer it?
You did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the, when we had discussions about this with the tourism office and some of the supervisors, some of the businesses have come forward, or the people who run these events, and said it's difficult to conduct an event when the amount of money that we're getting from the county seems to fluctuate year to year. And what's happened is we've had them come in to the committee, and sometimes they ask for 75,000 and they get 100,000. Sometimes they ask for 100,000, they get 60,000. And so, for example, an event like Americade, right after Americade stops, they begin the planning for the next year event. And it's a year-long process. So I believe what the business community who had these signature events asked for was a little bit more stability. And I think that's what the tourism office has come up with to do that. The second thing I'd add is we're not saying these are the only signature events. There may be others that come forward in the future. And we'll give them the opportunity to present to committees and see if they'd qualify as what we would call a signature event that traditionally brings in a significant amount of tourists that spend nights in our hotels over a specific period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was one of the questions. I said, can they come back up if something changes in that event? And the answer to that, I believe, is yes. You know, this is for this right here, but if they add something major or they want to present something else, something goes up, like to your question, they could present again above and beyond to this committee. If that happens, if their event changes or they add something to it or expenses go up, this doesn't limit them right here. They could come back up and present in front of us again. I'm not saying that's going to happen and I don't anticipate that, but.
Yeah, I would just add, I think that Heather and Mr. Taflin, and you gave a good overview, but you know, just at risk of, this is probably a poor example, but I remember the Balloon Festival, and as I understand it, it's an amazing event because it has so many volunteers, and it's like just an amazing in that way. However, I do remember about a year ago them, I think, presenting in here, and it was, I think they were asking for actually less than the 100, and then we gave them more than the 100. I somehow vaguely remember that happening. And then I think I remember like somewhat like the comparison was made that, well, this event's getting X amount and look at what we are. We're the Balloon Festival. Look at what we're bringing in. So almost the award was upped based on comparing to a different event. And I'm just trying to put it all together that it should always be merit-based based on that event, not something that's happened with a different event.
Yeah. And
I would make the point that potentially those lines got blurred in that situation.
yeah, I think that's a good example because when we had, I think the date was November 19th of last year. He didn't show up, Balloon Festival did not show up to present. So they were, I don't want to say penalized, but they got a smaller award, right? So this would help them
It's
in
not
that
necessarily
situation.
penalized.
Yeah,
We
I
have
know
a
that was the
scoring
wrong
rubric,
word, but
and part of that scoring rubric was required to have them attend and do a presentation. Didn't have to be that person, could have been somebody. And unfortunately, by not attending, supervisors don't have the ability to score because there's nothing to score, and therefore lost that. It's unfortunate. And we just have to be fair across the board. And so to your point with being fair, that's what the platform came in.
that helps. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last point I was going to add, I should have added it earlier, is the other point behind this is to help the tourism office. We're in our budget process right now. Better set aside funds for certain types of events so that, you know, they have a specific pot of money that they have that they can award to events. And during that process, if there all of a sudden Balloon Fest comes at the end of the season, if there's not enough money left over, they don't get what they need. So this was to kind of help the tourism office build this into the budget so that the money's set aside for these events.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If the discussion's complete, Mr. Chair, I had one question and one request.
Okay,
The question is this a 3-year contract or is it going to be with each signature event, 3 1-year agreements that would be renewed on an annual basis? Because there's been some conversation about these groups coming back for more money within the 3-year term, which would suggest it's not a 3-year contract, but it's 3 1-year agreements that the committee is recommending the board consider. So that's my first question.
okay. So,
Because at the end of the day, we have to develop a contract.
right,
And I need to know what the material terms are for that contract before I do that. Because it's going to be different than the standard Warren County Tourist and Convention Development Agreement that the county has been using, I think, since plus or minus 2007, 2008. But that's going to be my request after we can clarify, is it the intention for this resolution to enable these organizations to come back year after year to increase their number? Or is this the number that they're going to receive for 3 consecutive years?
you want to
I-
answer, Clay?
I can answer, but I think it's best that the committee
Okay, yeah,
decides this. My initial understanding is these were going to be awarded to these organizations for 3 consecutive years.
Right.
That is what we had presented in the resolution.
So the contract then would be Warren County agreeing to fund each of these events for the next 3 years, 26, 27, and 28 at the levels stated. Okay, if that's the consensus of the committee.
Could we do it as a 1-year contract with a extension up to a yearly extension up to 3 years?
It would be an annual renewal, but that then would be 3 separate terms and 3 separate agreements. Or at least a renewal of the original agreement each year. Doesn't make a difference to me or my office. I just need to know, we need to know what contract to prepare. Is this a 3-year agreement or is it a 1-year agreement with 2 renewals upon the mutual agreement of the parties?
I mean, the initial intent of this was to secure this funding for a 3-year period, so the budget process would be clearer for us a little bit, so they can plan and to show our commitment to these, organizations, and they can plan knowing they have certain amount of money to count on. But it's a committee decision, and I'd like to hear from the committee. Supervisor Runyon.
If it's a 1-year renewable, does that still give them the opportunity to count on the money? Because if it's renewable, does that mean you can change that number?
It would mean both
Yeah.
parties have to mutually agree each year to renew the contract.
Yeah,
That's what it means when we do a 1-year agreement with 1 or 2 additional renewal terms after the initial year.
but their point is to count on the money for 3 years.
Right.
So whatever happens should cause that to happen, cause it to be something they could count on. So does that change
I would,
renewable?
that's the question I'm trying to determine.
Yeah, so it all
Not for-
depends, I
it's not
guess.
For me to answer, it's for
So-
me to know what the committee wants.
Yeah,
Recommend to the board, if it's 3 years, 1 agreement, or is it an agreement that gets renewed for the 2nd year and then the 3rd?
Supervisor Patchit.
I support Chairman Cressito's recommendation of doing a 3-year contract, one contract. I think, right, one contract? Yep.
Yeah, I do too.
Supervisor Molino.
You know, this helps because you get like number one, the one down here is the National Car Show. They're assured to get this kind of money because other counties approach them to go there. So they already know what we're gonna give them.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it just protects us that we keep them here
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of these, well, the world's largest garage sale stays here and so does Lake George Carnival. Balloon Festival, but the one in here that car show can bounce around to another county, Saratoga County, you know.
Yeah.
Essex County, and we'd lose them.
Right, that's a good
So
point.
it's like gives them an assurance that they're gonna get this, they could get more, but this is what we're headed. That's what the idea was.
Oh, it's a good point, shows our commitment to them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then the request from the county attorney's office would be to amend the motion to authorize the county attorney to develop a standard contract for each signature event recipient. And the reason for that amendment is the standard Warren County Tourist and Convention Development Agreement would not necessarily apply to what the committee is proposing to do with these 5 groups. So I would just ask that the initial motion be amended so that we have the authority to create a contract that'll fit what the committee is proposing. And I'll work in conjunction with Heather on the reporting requirements.
So the motion that's on the floor, will want to add language to that. Larry, that would say authorize to create a contract to adjust to each individual event.
Just to develop a standard contract for
Yeah.
each signature event.
Okay. Set. Yeah. Want to amend that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna call it. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, everyone, for that.
You. The next is authorization to appropriate $664,675.36 from occupancy tax code A881, tax reserve. This is just the fourth quarter events, correct?
So we tried to make it easy in one resolution to appropriate funds, but each individual line item has a little background so that you can better understand what the resolution is asking. So I'm going to bring us back a year ago to November of 24, where we presented municipal funding applications for the committee and approved to fund projects with the understanding that appropriations would happen in the 3rd quarter in order for us to make the payment in Q4. So we awarded $318,850 to 60 projects plus 100,000 to the city of Glens Falls. So we need to, and that budget line was only $50,000. And therefore we need to increase, pull the funds from the occupancy tax reserve to fund that in the amount of $364,850. Then again, for the events, same understanding that we would allocate those dollars in Q3 to be paid in Q4. We awarded $861,860 to 38 events, plus the Adirondack Cycling Advocacy Contract, which our office missed on they have a multi-year contract. And then Up Yonder contract in the amount of $3,000. Again, our office missed carrying over that contract. So the differences between those two, what was awarded and what was in current contract minus what was budgeted is $159,238. Then moving on to the travel guide, our office is being asked to move up that timeline for releasing of the travel guide. And therefore the creative design has to happen this year. We did not anticipate producing 2 travel guides in 1 year. I know it sounds like we just did it, and we did. But believe it or not, we are probably 70% through all of those. Just reacting to your looks, because yes, I feel like I just finished it, but we're starting it again. And a lot of the businesses have asked for this. And so we can get it in the market at the end of January, beginning of February. But unfortunately, I don't have the funding for that. And so I need the $67,071 to do the creative design of the 104-page book, cover to cover. Then the next piece is payment to the towns. As we all know, our 2025 budgeted $7.8 million anticipated revenue for 2024. As we know, we were a little over the $8 million, so therefore the budget has to have the dollars in there to fund the full 25% of the actual receivables. And therefore that difference is $58,516.36. And then the final one is the $15,000 for the annual contract. That's the Lake George event. That resolution went through Public Works, Parks and Recs, and then was also then passed at the Board of Supervisors meeting, but the funds were never budgeted for. And therefore that resolution has passed, and it was passed with the funding through the occupancy tax, and therefore we need the allocation of those dollars, which is in $15,000. So the total asked to appropriate is $664,675.36. And I will take any questions if there are any.
So that was passed through.
That was passed,
O&M part.
Correct.
right, Yeah.
but it then went
Went back to
before,
us.
it then went before the Board of Supervisors. So in actuality,
Then pay for it. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding.
What's the balance of the reserve?
the balance of the reserve as of my report in front of us is $785,780 cash on hand. And that is dipping into the 1.5 reserve.
Oh, no.
By that answer.
So
So what's the balance of the reserve?
cash on hand right now is, according to July, is negative $482,735.
Heather, is it fair to say that September OCTAX money will replenish?
So according to projections, and again, my apologies, it's later on the agenda and should have been before, but so projected to be received in August, cash on hand is $505,431. And then projected in September is 2.5 million. Now, from both of those numbers, you need to subtract out the reserves of 1.5. So if you were going to have cash on hand projected for August, it would be, and I gotta do math real quick, it'll be probably negative $300,000 cash on hand for August. And for September, it would be about $1 million in cash on hand for September. And that's based on the projections.
Well, probably should have the money before we start spending it, but it's just my.
Yep. Fair point.
So we're running in the negative right now.
Well,
We're in the reserves.
Yes.
We're in reserves right now. And I know that 785, because this is July, is probably $500,000 right now. Excuse me, yes, $500,000, $500,000 right now in cash in the bank.
So when you say we're running in the reserves, you said we're negative 485,000, but that's not taking into account that we have 1.5 in reserve. So essentially,
We have the reserve.
we have about $1 million if you were to deduct those two from each other. Right? The 485 and then 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So there's $1 million of real money that's a reserve.
It's about $500,000 right now.
Would a plan to reimburse though, Heather? Would a plan to reimburse the reserve?
The plan is when the dollars come in from occupancy tax payments, the reserve is covered first. So those dollars will be back into the reserves.
Yeah.
First, and that most likely will happen in September, because it's the end of the third quarter. And therefore, most of payments are paid either monthly, quarterly, or annually. A lot of people pay quarterly, and therefore the kitty will be, so to say, will be increased based on that. Plus, September is the time that it captures our, I used one of your words. The September captures the summer travel. So that's where our largest dollars are in.
By October, the reserve will be solid.
Yes, yes, by October, our reserve will definitely be solid, but again, it's keeping an eye on cash on hand. And that's really the bigger piece of the puzzle.
Two questions.
Supervisor Patchett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it just sounds, I mean, when you start throwing numbers around without putting it all in front of us, the lines become
Yeah.
a little blurred. I think we can all
Yeah.
agree on that. But, you know, at some point, if we have $7.8 million of revenue coming in a year in tax, we have to start spending 6.5 or 7 in order to, you know, build. So, I mean, I'm just trying to break it down to a more simplistic approach, but nobody's taking less when they come here. So there has to be a give somewhere in order to make the numbers work.
100%.
And my second question is, you know, in the travel guide, I asked a question in the board meeting on Friday, and I didn't necessarily say this, but my question was, we were pushing back the origination date of the contract for the travel guide about 6 months. And where I was going with that, and I asked, well, does the expiration date change? And the answer was no, the expiration date doesn't change. So the way that it was originally structured, it appeared that, like, you know, if you backed up both dates, then, you know, then I was thinking that we would spend more, but we didn't back up both dates. We only backed up one date, not the expiration date. So I was thinking, since we didn't back up the expiration date, there wasn't going to be an additional expenditure. And now I'm seeing $67,000 of an additional expenditure. And that was really the point of my question in that board meeting. So,
And I apologize, I wasn't there. I can answer that for you. So an annual guide our guide is very much evergreen. However, we have gone through probably 85,000 of the 120,000 that we have printed this year. It goes to various distribution outlets across the Northeast. It goes to shows that our partners are at. And so we have depleted that. We produce an annual guide each year, and it's new content. We also have a new campaign coming out, so it's even much more important to make sure that we refresh that content, because it's a new campaign that we're gonna splash inside that. So that will always be an annual expense for us. It's just this year, we're producing 2 guides. We're having the creative production for 2 guides, unfortunately. Usually we do, so next year it'll all even out. Next year I'm gonna plan for 1 guide and 1 printing. But due to the request of having it out earlier, I have to produce it before December 31st. So we will always have an annual guide production and creative design every year. Does that fully answer your question?
it does.
Okay.
But it does sound like we didn't change the expiration date of the first guide, and we're spending an extra 67,000.
We don't necessarily have a start and end date of the guide per se. What we do is we include all of our annual items in there. For example, the annual events, the top events, within that guide. So there really is not an expiration. Really, the expiration is when it's gone. And so we do, our office manages the flow of how many we put out, how many we bring in. And this year in 2024 guide, we ran out at the beginning of this year. It didn't hold us over. So we were going out to, you know, destinations like the malls and things like that, and pulling some back from where they were.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Theory is to get it out earlier because we think it'll be more effective.
Yes.
Other questions? Need a motion to move this forward? Motion made by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Morlino. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next, we have authorization to approve $7,500 for a September conference at the Fort William Henry. Heather could go over what the 7,500 purchases for us and could help us.
So the New York State Tourism Industry Association is having their annual tourism event here at the Fort William Henry. And they're hosting in-market immersion experiences within Warren County. So many of New York State and out of New York State tourism destinations, as well as in-state and out-of-state vendors, will be at this event. And many of them will participate in excursions of a 2-hour floating classroom experience in Lake George Association and tourism in our towns, which is Revolutionary Rail, Adirondack Folk School, and the Nettle Meadows Farms. And part of that partnership, we will get additional attendees at the conference. We will allow Paul, Casey, Liza, and John Teflin to attend this event on all of the days. It'll also allow us to have 2 tables at the award ceremony so that we can have representation at the award ceremony, as well as all marketing on their website, on their newsletters, in the welcome packets, in the all within the events there. So we are looking for funding for that $7,500 to fund that promotion.
Need a motion to move this forward? Motion made by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Thomas. Any further discussion? Supervisor Patchett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 7,500 is to become, I mean, I know you mentioned, Heather, that we get a seat at the table. It's to be a membership, a member of the New York State Tourism Industry Association.
It's not a membership fee, it's like a sponsorship fee. So think of it as a sponsorship. So we're sponsoring the event and most importantly, the excursion or the off-site excursion as a sponsored member. And part of that, we get some marketing in return for that, as well as additional attendees at the event. Each attendee is about $500.
Okay, so how this is bringing tourism to Warren County because we're going to be on their website because the event's not in Warren County, correct?
The event's at the Fort William Henry.
Okay,
So, and the organization that's running that event is New York State Tourism Association. And they're basically one of the lead agencies in New York State that represents the tourism industry across the board. So you will have pretty much all of the destinations. I don't want to say every single one of them, but majority of the destinations and many vendors throughout the United States. Some even come from Canada, immersed in our destination. So they will get to experience some of the things. And the goal is, and the hope is that not only will they get to experience it, but then they will want to come back to be a visitor here at a later time with maybe their family and their friends and things like that. So the goal is to market to this. So it's almost like we're doing a mini campaign, to break it down, to those attendees that are at this event. And I believe the number's 470 at this time, 460 of the attendees that are there. And that doesn't include those that travel in, like those in Saratoga won't necessarily be staying overnight, but they'll travel in from other locations. So there's almost about a 500 attendee.
we don't pay for the whole event, that's 7,500.
No.
They're paying to come here.
Correct. This is the, every individual business and organization pays for themselves to be a registrant and pays their own travel. This is a sponsorship for that, and what we get from that sponsorship is the marketing as well as the attendees being able to attend as well.
Get 5 extra attendees, a part of our sponsorship, correct?
There's 5 total.
5 total,
Yes,
2 tables.
2 tables.
Eight.
And then all the marketing support.
Right.
Plus, we get to talk a little bit more about, and Gina's team is doing a great job in putting those in market immersion experiences together. And her team and our team will be together to talk to that captive audience about all the things that they can do in our area.
And I don't see a lot of value in being on their website, but I do see value in 500 people coming to Warren County. So in that capacity, I agree.
I mean, some pieces are not as large as others. You're 100% right.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the next resolution is just to appropriate those funds.
Need a resolution to move the 7,500 forward to appropriate it. Motion made by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Gilligan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The last resolution is to revise language of resolution 503 of 2007. I think that always made reference to the 1%, which was 1% of the 4%. And I think that was confusing sometimes. So now it's going to be changed to 25%, but it's exactly the same number and nothing is.
It's just
Yeah.
simplifying the terms of a contract, and if there's any additional.
Yeah, I would just remind the supervisors that there's no legal reason to do this. Because every time you approve your municipal funding, it's a resolution. So every year you can decide to do whatever you want to do. Unless you pass a local law, it's not binding on future boards and future votes by this board. So all you're doing is amending a resolution from 2007. But you can just amend it the following board meeting with a new resolution that does something different. So basically, this board decides what they're going to issue for municipal funding when they issue it. And they've been using this as a guide since 2007, which is wonderful. If you want to amend it, there's no legal reason you can't do it, but legally, it doesn't carry any weight.
Your legal opinion.
What inspired this, what I just said, the 1% and the 25%, the resolution? What got it going? Because of the language?
Yeah, so the original resolution, 105 of 2005, clearly stated 25% or 1/4 of receivables.
Right.
Somewhere between 150 and 503 of 2007, it became 1% of receivables, not 25%. So
Gotcha.
that's and so we cite this resolution and every award that we make. So the county attorney's office, at least my conversations with Amy and with Carla, were that we should probably clarify.
Oh,
this
yeah.
to reflect 25%, so there's any ambiguity.
So in 2007, when it said 1%, the 1% represent 1% of the 4%, which is still 25%. Or
You're right, but it's just.
I'm saying is correct. So now I want to clarify that's 25%. Same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Pleasure of the board.
So makes you happy.
I agree with that. Motion made by Supervisor Thomas, seconded by Supervisor Runyon. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Discussion items. Heather, cash flow report? Okay.
So I think going, first and foremost, I want to thank the treasurer's office for pulling together this report that everyone's getting. I know that you had something in your packets. We have added the projections to this document so we can then make you better decisions, unfortunately, not in the right timing, and I will make sure that our agenda has this report coming first so that sound decisions can be made. But really, I have used a lot of this data here, or a lot of these numbers here to create a projection. And then the treasurer's office provided more information to this, so we can actually see what's happening with the monies throughout the year. And so you're always gonna see a year in review here. So right now it's actual July 2025 to July 2024 to July 2025. And I'm just looking at the top portion of this that says actuals. And so you'll see the flow of dollars, the beginning cash, the receipts, the disbursements, ending cash going all the way up to today. We've asked to add projections because what we decide in this committee meeting doesn't get approved to the following month, and then probably it gets enacted in the following month after that. So we're about a 1 to 3 month, time in between. Going down underneath the actual tourism cash on hand versus invested. So looking at the green with the tourism cash on hand. So February, March, April, May, you can see that those dollars are higher. So the $2 million cash on hand. You notice May and July are lower. So that means we dipped into the reserves $211,000 in May. And we dipped into those reserves $482,000 in July. We have key takeaways below. I'll go through that in a moment, and that'll explain some of the reasons why those dollars are below. We then have this tourism cash invested. And so this is another acronym. No need to learn another acronym. Look at that as the investments. So the dollars of the reserve, the 1.5, is going to live in this investment bucket. I'm not going to say it lives here, there, or anywhere. It is continuing to receive interest. I believe it's a 5.1% investment on the dollars. So you'll always see these dollars increasing here, unfortunately, until June and July, because we had to tap into our reserves. And then below that is the total tourism cash balance. So it's not cash on hand, it's a cash balance. Cash on hand is available for us to allocate and spend. Cash balance, it's for us to allocate as well, but do understand that once that is goes below a 1.5, we are tapping into reserves. And so then you look at projections. I talked about that earlier, and then key takeaways. And so these are identified that 62% of our cash is down. And there are two reasons why that cash is down versus a year ago. We had initiated a new process for our event funding, and that process actually is working so well that we are able to process these invoices quicker and make payments in a timely fashion. So we now need to do better in watching the cash flow on that end to know that those dollars are going to come out faster than it did prior year. The second piece is because of the 5th week in July, we assumed that when we submitted the spending plan checks to go through the process, we thought it would hit August. It actually hit July. So that's really the difference in that 62%. And then also, it's also we're spending more money this year than we did last year. And so that's another reason why that's down. And so this, we believe, will be a better understanding of monies moving through in and out. And so in the agenda, I will make sure that this is presented at the beginning of every meeting so that we can make better decisions to the point that Mr. Supervisor Thomas was trying to make, which thankfully we had our budget meetings because he knew some of those information. So thank you for bringing that up because I actually meant to bring it up beforehand. Are there any questions on this document?
I have a question, but not on this document.
Okay.
You're gonna be starting your budget for the year of 2026 soon, and your approximate revenue is 7.8 million.
Yes, so now, as of yesterday, we have what we believe is a great plan to approach budgeting for occupancy tax and tourism. We're gonna follow suit with what is done in other departments in looking at the sales tax. And so we will take 2024 sales receivables and add 2%.
So getting to my question, let's just say, we're bringing in $8 million a year. Is there a plan to have your department at, say, 6.5 million or 7 million? Or in terms of what you're budgeting for? I mean, clearly, I know like there was a, unexpected, like we approved the, it was in Stony Creek. What's the facility called? We approved the sewer. I mean, clearly, I understand those things.
That's-
What's that? John, I apologize. They're close, aren't they? So,
County.
you know, clearly I understand there's things that come up that are unexpected, but you know, there has to be, I mean, if you don't budget for 7 million.
Yeah.
We're not gonna improve in the way we're going about it. I mean, to Mr. Thomas's perspective, what he said is we should have it before we spend it.
100%. And I'll tell you what I said to John Taplin, day 4 of my arrival here is, I said, you're gonna fire me because we were already $4 million over budget. So we have come a long way in the last couple of years. And so I think the charge and the reason for sharing this and the conversation about getting to a better place and understanding where the occupancy tax is, we have to, and I say myself, has to present the information to this committee, has to hold to the budget.
Right.
And so if, you know, and I am going to bring a budget that is held to that 2% above 2024.
Right.
So if I could request and ask that we continue to stay within that budget, and when dollars become available and are more than what we anticipated, we can then look at those dollars. So we are now getting those dollars first and then receiving them. However, to your point, it's about, you know, reacting to what's happening too. And
Sure.
every committee does that. Unfortunately,
Right.
I don't have a crystal ball, but if we all work together to make sure that we're staying within budget, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, Mr. Wild has a very good point that we should try to start putting something away for something that would be really meaningful. I don't know that I necessarily agree with him that we should pull it from the municipalities, but there's got to be other ways to collaboratively meet that goal. That's my last
Yeah.
point.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Patrick, this has been, and Supervisor Wild too, this has been an issue with me since I've been here. Every month I seem to see different numbers that don't really always coincide on occupancy tax. We had our first budget meeting on Monday of this week with the tourism and occupancy tax budget. And we are rescheduling that meeting this Thursday because we started thinking about maybe alternative ways of doing this. And like, for example, we may want to do this the same way we do sales tax as we go forward in the budget, because we use sales tax in the budget, but we don't know, it's all based on projections because the budget is pretty much a guess on what we think we're going to get. We're going to do the same thing, something similar probably with OCTAX, and try to get it a little bit more consistent, easy to understand, possibly, and you know, maybe created the reserve that we're talking. Thank you.
You done, Heather?
I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you very much. Treasurer's report?
This.
Good morning, everyone. Just one point on the cash flow and taking the occupancy tax receipts, the collections and adding 2%. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But you can't just, take a twelfth of that every month. The reason the numbers are not gonna match. I take in collections. And those collections are actual collections, 1 month in arrears, 1 month past. So if I'm collecting, so May's receipts are reflective of April's activity. So it's a very different based on the seasonalities, what your tax, receipts and the collections that I get. That's why the numbers are so different. But again, I understand what you're asking for and I will try to work with you on that, but I don't think it's gonna be quite as simple as that. So, secondly, the occupancy tax receipts. Again, this is what I take in. This is what the treasurer takes in based on the activity, both the hotels, motels, resorts, and the short-term rentals. So the top is total receipts, which includes both of those categories. And you will see, we only had collections meet the deadline required to get the information into this meeting. We only have collections through August 6th. So collections through August 6th look a little funky, 91% down. That's a timing issue, pure timing. By August 30th, it's going to be on par. But what's more important is to look at June 1st to August 6th, comparatively 2025, which is the first number, to 2024, which is the second number. So 1.2 to 1.2 and et cetera. Basically, there's a $36,000 increase, which is a 3% increase. So we've been going all along to sometimes, we've been flat to very much above. So the 2% makes sense. And again, we'll look at it on a month-to-month basis. If you look at the two components that make up that, hotels, motels, and resorts were down 1%. But again, if you look at the very bottom, that STR, short-term rentals were up 12%. Short-term rentals make up about 35% of the 8 million. And so because it's 12%, they're a smaller amount. They do help out the overall reserves, but the negative one, hotels, motels, and resorts, they're 65%. So that impacts it. So that's really the activity as of August 6th. And then we just give you informationally, we give you the year to date. And again, August 6th, from a year to date perspective, didn't make much sense. So we gave you the year to date, July 31st. And what you're looking at that, again, we're 3% through July 31st overall increase. Hotels, motels, and resorts are flat. And we have a 7% increase in short-term rentals. Questions?
Thanks, Christine.
Welcome.
Thank you. Next, Jeff Mead, Harding Mazzati Arena update. Hi, Jeff.
That's gonna make it. Hello, a couple things today. Kind of a quick 24-25 recap. I haven't been here in a little while. On the hockey front, the Thunder, not a great year on the ice, but fortunately, it was our most successful season off the ice, attendance-wise, since we started in 2015. Average attendance was over 4,500 fans per game, 16 sold-out games out of our 36. The team had over 2,300 season ticket equivalents. What that means is if you buy a full season ticket, that's one equivalent. If you buy a half season ticket, that's two of those equal one full season equivalent. So that's how we do it, and that's how the league does it. As I mentioned, on the ice, not real good, but that'll turn on this year. I promise, Dave. So 25-26, we're already over 2,100 season ticket equivalents, so we're well on our way to meeting and hopefully surpassing last season's numbers. So in the community last year, we were able to donate over $300,000 back to our community. A lot of that through 50-50 jersey auctions, jersey raffles that we do every year. So again, that was our best number. So we're very proud of that. Over 200 player appearances in the community. That's the hospitals, youth groups, everything we do out in the community, a lot of school. So again, very proud of that. Over 300 appearances. So on the hockey side, it was a very successful year again off the ice. Whole new coaching staff this year, so we're looking forward to bringing back an old Red Wing and Sylvain Cloutier and an old Phantom and Ben Holmstrom. So again, we're very excited for the year this year. Arena side, successful year. We were able to invest over $350,000 back into the building, and that was certainly due to a really good 23-24 season with the hockey team in the arena. And a lot of that was in arena bathrooms, $175,000, which were certainly needed. $120,000 back into the mechanicals of the building, which are very, very dated. $30,000 more into arena food and beverage, and $20,000 in the general mechanicals and miscellaneous items. Again, many events. Unfortunately, we didn't have a major concert last year. That's certainly a priority this year, and we're working really hard to bring a few major concerts to the building. And one note, Heritage Hall, we were able to triple our events and revenues this year. And obviously, we made a big renovation a couple years ago, thanks in part to the county funding. So again, thank you for that. But Heritage Hall has really been successful since we were able to renovate that space. 25-26, as you just mentioned, new naming rights to the building, Cardi Mazzotti Arena. We're excited for that. We had a lot of discussions with a lot of partners, but at the end of the day, Cardi Mazzotti came out on top. 5-year partnership. We already have a 5-year mutually agreed upon extension. So hopefully that's a 10-year partnership. So looking forward to that. And you'll see a lot more Hardy Mazzotti events with the Thunder and stuff upcoming this fall. We've already signed 2 major events that we'll announce soon, one in January and a big event for February, as I just mentioned. All our signature events will be back. The one in September that we do every year that we can't talk about, but you all hopefully know what it is by now, which is good for downtown Glens Falls. The rodeo, girls state volleyball is back. We just won the bid for 3 more years after this year. The Section 2 wrestling's back in full. Section 2 basketball is back in full. We'll bid again on the state basketball tournament to bring it back to Glens Falls. I know they were in Binghamton last year. Not sure how successful it was in terms of attendance, but we'll move on from that. Obviously still a little bit bitter on that, but like I said, we'll move on. The Adirondack United, our girls high school team, is moving to the Hardy Mazzotti Arena, so we're excited about that as well. Obviously, the biggest concern certainly is our ice plant. It's 25 years old now. We just signed a $40,000 study to try to find out the best way to go about getting a new ice plant between $4.5 and $7 million. So that is our biggest concern and the biggest need for the building going forward. So I'll keep you up to date on that plan going forward. So that's kind of what I had for today, but happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Questions, comments? Did you say new ice plant was 4.5 to 7?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not cheap.
That would
But
put the
it's
ice
critical
on
to keep
the,
the ice frozen.
that would puts the ice on the rink, nice plant.
Yeah, yep. So. Yeah, it's all the pipes and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah, it's way more complicated than I just said it, but yeah,
Very good. Good job. Thank you.
thank you.
Lake George TV quarterly overview. Jesse Jackson, Ed Larkin.
Good morning. Thanks for having us in. Give you a quarterly update. Got a presentation I'm going to follow along with. So this covers the time frame of May, June, and July. That's kind of our third quarter, so to speak. And what I'm going to talk about, you can go to the second slide. What I'm going to talk about is our growth metrics for the quarter, the marketing campaigns that drove that growth, enhancements that we've made to the platform. I included some partner feedback. I won't go through that. It's a page you can read on your own. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, talk briefly about some of our upcoming plans. So those of you who have seen my presentations in the past, you know that when it comes to growth metrics, I like to kind of look at it as like a sales funnel. Starting at the top is how many consumers did we expose to the Lake George area in Warren County? What kind of growth did we see? So this past quarter, we saw 156% growth in our consumer reach. In this, the orange is this quarter last year, and the green is this quarter this year. So what we're gonna do is go through the reach and then what kind of view and engagement that drove, what kind of results it drove in terms of click-throughs, and then what learnings did we have? And then that will tie in with Jesse talking a little bit about the plans. And then for us, obviously, we take all of that knowledge and put it back in the top of the funnel, essentially, to put together our plan for next year. So you can go on to the next one, actually. So this grew, no, I'm sorry, go back for 1 second, just because I know the numbers can be a little hard to read. Basically, we went from 224,000 consumers that we reached in 2024 to over 575,000. So that's where we were for this quarter this year. That's how many people we exposed to the Lake George area in Warren County, okay, through our various efforts. So that leads to consumer reviews, obviously. Showing people what Warren County has to offer leads to them going to the platform and exploring the content. Again, 2024 is in orange, 2025 is in green. We grew this at 40%. We went from 86,000 consumer views last year to over 120,000 this year. So growing our reach and our views, let's take a look at what kind of engagement that drove. That's the next slide. This grew tremendously. This grew over 2,000%. So this is consumers coming to the platform and actually interacting with the content, watching content, okay? And clicking around to various things on the platform. It's interesting when you look at the pathways, you see that somebody comes in and, maybe what draws them in is a Facebook post about a new video that's on the platform for a particular hotel, but then they go to the platform and then they start looking at events, and then they start looking at restaurants, and then they start looking at, rodeos and things like that. So, these pathways that people use. So we grew that from 161,000 seconds of engagement last year to over 3.5 million this year. So pretty tremendous growth there. So we're reaching a lot more consumers. We are getting a lot more engagement in the content. And for us, ultimately, what we're looking at, the best measure for success for us is really what kind of clicks does that drive to the businesses? Because we're all about bringing people in, letting them know about the county, getting them interested in the businesses, the events and the attractions, and then getting them to click through to that business and to make a reservation or find out the hours or directions or that kind of thing. So if you go to the clicks, that's the next slide. We had 427% growth in our consumer click-throughs. So we went from last year in this quarter, about 10,000 click-throughs to over 50,000 click-throughs this quarter, which is pretty tremendous growth. I mean, to me, that shows that people are interested in the content and that they're actually interested in the businesses and the events and the attractions, and they're going there to their websites and checking them out. So we have very strong growth there. And we always want to look at where they're coming from to see if they're sort of qualified, if they're the right kind of leads. You can go to the next one. So this is 2024 versus 2025, again, quarter against quarter. Green is this year and orange is last year. So you can see that people are coming from New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Vermont. One thing I always find interesting is the Canadian thing. Just, I don't know, I'm always interested in that. You can see that last year we had almost 16% of the visitors to our platform coming from Quebec. And this year it was only 2.5%. So definitely a big downturn there. I know a lot of people say that, well, Canada is not that big a part of here, but I do know that for certain sectors, it is a part. If you go to the campgrounds around Warren County, you'll see an awful lot of Canadian plates at the campgrounds, more so than you do at the hotels and places like that. It's very easy for people to come over the border and go to a campground, especially if you drive a small RV or like Class B. So anyways, we saw that a big downturn for Quebec and Ontario, but New York continued to be our strongest area, obviously, and then the whole metro New York area and the New England states. So how we drove people to these is through our marketing campaigns. I said I was going to talk a little bit about the marketing campaigns, but if you go to the next slide, first I'm just going to show you kind of what we do. We did 3 marketing campaigns this quarter. The Grape Escape is one of them. Starry Night was the second one, and then I can't remember the name of it. Horsing Around, thank you. Yeah, if you want to just go ahead and play this one. So, from last year, those of you who were around, remember our grapes from last year, this amount of engagement, people love these grapes. A lot of comments about, as we brought it back, we had some of the same partners, but we also had some new partners that were involved in it. You know, people said, hey, I understand you do these marketing campaigns, be part of that. I understand I get a ton of free exposure, and then you share and with me so I can market to those people in the future. This one did 173,000 views, and we shared over 3,100 targeted. Popular. As you see, we got over 200,000 views. The leads was 1,000.
Hey, partner, time to rain in the summer.
Not as many.
Loose, kick up your heels and get ready for a little horsing around.
This was sort of an attempt to celebrate the rodeo history of Warren County, kind of harken back to that fashion, but at the same time, let people know, hey, we're not an old fashioned. Last year,
Time to wave goodbye to summer, so pony up and enter today.
so that one had 150,000 views and over 1,500 targeted leads that we were able to share with our partners for that one. So these marketing campaigns are just kind of, you know, one of the things we do. Obviously, we do social media, we do display advertising, but these marketing campaigns have turned out to be really, really effective and popular. And the partners seem to love it. And not only do they get the publicity, but they actually get hard leads. They actually get the email addresses, the name, the phone number, et cetera, of people to enter the contests. So, you know, this year alone, it's been something like 6,000 or 7,000 of those that we've been able to share with them. They can then put them into their marketing cadence and start sending them emails and hit them up on the internet, that sort of thing. So we did these three quarterly campaigns. I think I already talked about what they were, but combined over 500,000 views, 527,000 plus views, and almost 6,000 targeted leads that they resulted from these. So who are the entrants? That's the next thing. As far as demos go, entrant ages, you'll see that the biggest groups are 40 to 75, but the biggest bump is really that 50 to 70. Again, in the demo of kind of who the typical Warren County visitor is, the people that are actually making the decisions and paying to stay here, that kind of thing. If you go on to the next one, we'll go through the locales. Again, you're going to see New York, and that's New York State. It's largely focused on the New York metro area and upstate, especially upstate, though. That was interesting for us this year because last year, things like Grape Escape, that definitely brings in a little bit more of a higher end, maybe New York metro person. But Starry Night, which was camping, we had a lot of people from Rochester and Buffalo and Syracuse and Utica, a lot more than we've seen in the past. So again, sort of trying to get that underserved part of Warren County and get some attention and love for those areas as well. And then you'll see New Jersey, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, you know, Pennsylvania, et cetera. So kind of the typical locales. If you go to the next one, that's like, yeah. So I wanted to talk about some of the platform enhancements that we've made. We've tried to increase our physical presence, the accessibility of the platform to people. So to that end, I've talked before about these tourism partner sub-channels that we've created. We had one for Warren County to start with. And then I have to give credit to Gina Mintzer for the brilliant idea of us creating one for LGRCC and its members. And that's now spread to other chambers as well, and also the Visitor Information Center. So the 26,000 people or so that come through the visitor center every year are exposed to 2 TVs that are playing Lake George TV and the content of all of the businesses and events and attractions that are advertising on the platform. And all they have to do, if something catches their eye, is pull out their phone, scan the QR code, and takes them directly to the website for that event or attraction or business.
Same thing with the chamber offices, et cetera. The two that we just added were North Warren and the Warrensburg Chamber. So we're always looking for opportunities to continue to expand that, that physical presence. This kind of gives two benefits to these chambers too. It gives them an always on promotion of their members that doesn't drain their staff resources. If you go into the North Warren Chamber, and anybody who knows the North Warren Chamber knows that they had some challenges in terms of, people quit and then they didn't have a director, and they've kind of got themselves really on a really nice track right now, but for a while they had some serious challenges. So staffing was a real problem for them, but if the office was open, visitors could come in, they could stand there and they could watch videos of the members of the North Warren Chamber that were playing on a continuous loop and get information about them, get excited about them, and scan the QR code and go to that business. And the Warrensburg Chamber is now part of that as well. The second thing is that it provides, I think, and I've encouraged them to do this, let your members know about this. This is kind of a value add for these chambers to say, hey, we're now, advertising you kind of 24/7 whenever our office is open or whenever the visitor center is open. You're getting attention, you're getting promotion. So that's one. The second one, if you go to the next page, is these video embeds. Now, I did talk about these before, but they were kind of something that we were working on doing. Now it's live. We have a couple of initial partners, tourism partners, that have embedded their Lake George TV video on their website. What it does is it brings the website to life. It takes a static website, which can be frankly boring, and all of a sudden it brings it to life with video. They can tell their story. They can advertise how fun and cool it is to go rent a boat, that kind of thing. It really instantly adds dynamic and engaging content, and it keeps visitors on the website longer, which makes them more likely to actually take a conversion type of action. Because Lake George TV hosts the video, it doesn't lag their website at all. It doesn't strain their resources. It's just a call to our website to then play that video. So they're not hosting the video, we're hosting the video. So it doesn't impact the performance of their website in a negative way. And so far, they've been very happy with the results of that anyways. I think ultimately it's about turning more browsers into buyers, really. And, the other thing too is that these video embeds are a way that we're trying not only to improve our own platform, but to help our tourism partners to maximize their own marketing investments. These businesses spend a lot of money on these websites. They pay a lot of money to have these websites. And if we can improve those websites in a way that doesn't cost them a dime, but it gets them more conversions, then we're going to do it. And so things like this are ideas we're coming up with. If you go to the next slide, I just want to show briefly, we don't have to go through all of these, but if you just go ahead and hit on the right is a video. So on the left is a static website as it was.
We believe,
Where,
it was
it was a story of Adirondack.
and, we try to buy as much as we
Then
can.
now that they've embedded their video,
From New
you
York,
have John
Frank,
Parr
Ops,
telling
your
the
labor,
story of
Fox,
Adirondack Pub and Brewery.
as much as we
It
can.
takes it from just a static website that's
I also believe
interesting,
that
but not that
local fresh
interesting,
beer
to
is
him actually
the best
telling
beer
the
that
story.
you can buy.
If you go to the
For
next one,
consumers
too.
today.
Good enough. I don't want to take up too much time. So Riding High, again, on the left is their static website.
Take
The
a
right
trip
is
where
how
you
it-
can literally taste summer. Take a
They've got
trip where
this-
you'll dust off daily stresses with a fun horseback ride. Take a trip where kids can play and you can still relax the day away. Riding High Ranch Resort in the Adirondacks is a wonderful couple's getaway and has something for the entire family. At this all-inclusive resort, you'll enjoy.
Like I said, I don't want to take up too much time with these. Pilot Knob, same thing. The one on the right. Pilot Knob has a great restaurant.
Everything to
but
get you
again,
in the water. Looking
now
for a
that
fun
it has a video
family
on it,
experience in the Adirondacks? Try wakeboarding with the kids.
And they can do this
Attach
with
a
any-
big surf edge to your boat and create
Anybody
the
that has
perfect
video
wave,
on the
or get a
lake
cool
can
tube everyone
and
can enjoy.
send
Try
them
paddleboarding on the lake.
and then they can embed it on their website. And like I said, it's no cost to them to do it, and it improves their website. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about something else that we've done to expand distribution. If you go to the next slide, we're also trying to make sure that when people are here, they have a better visitor experience, because I believe that better visitor experience means greater likelihood you're going to come back. If you spend money and time to go somewhere, but you don't see much, you don't do much, are you going to go back? Maybe not. There's a lot of choices. So let's help people to maximize their visitor experience. So a couple of our beta partners, we've given them what we call pillow cards, which are these horizontal rack cards. And you can see that in the middle, it says explore more. And on the left is a QR code that goes to, I can't actually see which one it is. That's the iPhone app. And on the left is to the Android app. So anybody who checks into a room at the Fort William Henry Resort or at the Holiday Inn will see a pillow card sitting there. They can just pull out their phone. Oh, what do they mean explore more? Download the app. Now they're on Lake George TV. They can see all the things they're already seeing and do in this area. So again, it's about trying to maximize the visitor experience and ultimately get more people to come back. So I just want to go through a quick recap. Next slide. So again, May, June, July, our reach, we grew 156% over 575,000. Our engagement, we grew at over 2,000%, over 3.5 million seconds of visitor engagement. Click-throughs, kind of to me, the most important thing. Click-throughs, we increased 427% to over 50,000 click-throughs just in this quarter. And for those of you that were here for our year 2 recap several months ago, you'll remember that we had something like 700% growth in year 2, and that was for a total of 40,000 click-throughs in the entire year. We exceeded that just in this quarter alone. Our marketing campaigns for this quarter, over 527,000 views, 5,700 leads shared. We've done multiple improvements, enhancements to the platform, and increased the distribution of it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse for a minute, and he's going to talk about some of our upcoming plans. Thanks, Phil. Welcome.
I just have just something just briefly to talk to you about it. From the very beginning, you've really sort of looked to us to kind of do out of the box thinking and be a creative aspect to this mothership of tourism. I think we're proving that we're doing it and doing it in kind of a creative way. And one of the things that I'd like to just impress you with or talk to you about is the fact that this out of the box creative thinking that we do is leading us to these marketing campaigns. And these marketing campaigns are proving to be very successful in terms of engaging consumers. And looking ahead, there's a lot to be done in the area of the history of our region. And moving forward into next year, we're going to be taking the platform and embedding certain things to do with the experience of coming to Warren County and the significance of what this area and region means to the birth of our nation. And we're finding very creative and ways to do this, which we will be presenting in the months to come. I've had numerous meetings, for instance, with John Denuzzo. I have a meeting set up with Terry Rogers and her team at the Historical Foundation, Warren County Historical Society. And they're coming to us with a lot of very interesting ideas. So we're going to embed that 250 into our logo. We're taking the existing marketing campaigns that we do have, modifying them a bit, and reaching out to our partners to say, we all play a part in the history of this region. Come to us with ideas. And I wanted to bring that up to all of you because please give us your ideas. We've got a lot that we're looking forward to doing and more to come. Thanks.
Thanks, Jesse.
So questions?
Yeah, you can go to the last one slide if you want, it's just questions.
Have you have a question? Supervisor Patchett, yeah.
So you mentioned that you've added some Chamber of Commerce's. Have you guys reached out to TAC yet? Ticonderoga Area Chamber of Commerce that Hague is partnered with?
We up here, right? We have insofar as we got a video for, in fact, I think the video for the town of Hague originally came from them. So we have reached out to them for businesses that are part of that chamber, but not part of any other chamber, to see if we can get video assets from them. Obviously, we would not create a sub-channel for the Thai Chamber because our charter, if you will, is strictly Warren County.
Right now, I'm just making the point that they are advertising for the town of Hague.
Right.
And I would just think that it would, if you're contacting other chambers in Warren County, you would also include them as being partnered with one of your towns in your county.
We have, but we could probably do a better job. So maybe I'll catch you afterwards. If you have a contact that I don't have, that might help.
Yeah.
Great.
I have additional questions, or should I wait?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, how much is your funding yearly from Warren County?
It's a monthly fee that we charge the county, monthly invoice we send the county for 22.9.
The 22.9 times 12, somebody help me here.
274.
274.
Yep.
So I'm seeing a lot of information on all this growth, 156% growth in consumer reach. I'm seeing 2000% growth in consumer engagement. And maybe this is a question for our director of tourism. How are we verifying this information? Like,
So they give us quarterly reports. One of my questions on that, which might put clarity to it, was because I know that in the last year you started to actually market and put out paid media dollars behind this platform.
Yep.
I would assume outside of the creativity that is driving a lot of your traffic because you actually spent marketing dollars behind that.
Yep.
Whereas in the past you did not.
Yep.
So that's a big portion of it, which is correct. You put money towards marketing something, it is going to increase. And when did your programs start? Like your advertising programs for like the campaigns that you're doing? Because I think that when you look at year before, you weren't doing as many campaigns because the platform was being built.
Exactly.
So a lot of those numbers are comparing to, little or no marketing, not knowing exactly timing, to actual being in the market and doing paid media dollars behind it, which is very important. So that's why you're seeing those large numbers. Am I correct in saying that?
so those are clicking reports though, and those are reports of like just a printout of how much is going on my website, right? Is it how much traffic?
Yeah, so it's also how many views, so how many people have actually looked at that video, watched it all the way through, how many people then did an extra look and clicked on it. So yes, you are correct in that.
I mean, I'm not a tech guy, but how do we know how do we know it is what they say it is? And I'm not really challenging anyone's integrity. I'm just saying, how do we know these clicks aren't from China? How do we know that? I mean, I'm struggling to understand how all this information I see is correct. And for me, if we're seeing all this growth, like at what point are people willing to pay like even a half a rate of what it should be to move it forward? At what point, the metric has to be people are willing to pay for a product. And if people aren't willing to pay for a product, well, then what value does it have? Meaning the business, my family business, for instance, the Trout House should be able to say, oh my God, this is how I know it's real, and I'm willing to pay you X number of dollars. And I don't know that I'm not so sure that I'm hearing that here. And I've always heard I've always heard the comparison that this is seed money to get them started, right? And I'm not seeing that direction. And nobody's talking about, people becoming independent. And this isn't the only entity, but for me to talk about success in the number of clicks is hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, I can't. I mean, I think it was last meeting, I spoke with Gina, and I was wondering if they are putting Lake George TV logo on Warren County website, and I think that Gina told me she was going to correct that. So is Warren County or has that been crossed, or excuse me, does Lake George TV have Warren County Tourism on their website also? That box is checked?
Yeah, we always did.
So the funding, it though, going back to the funding, are we like, so there's $274,000 of funding, right? Is all of this pretty much labor money for them to make this all happen with their team? Is that the primary source of where that 274 goes yearly?
From the reporting that we get, we do not see the breakdown. However, I can almost assume that, yes, you are correct, but it's also for marketing dollars as well. As they said that they do some paid media. So that's actually buying and selling or buying the paid media dollars for that. So whether it be social, digital, things like that. But we do not get a outline budget report from them.
Well, and to clarify, just like, for example, the county pays how much per year for a Simple V website?
$40,000.
$40,000. So we have to pay multiple vendors to have this available on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, Android apps, and iPhone apps, in addition to the website. So we are paying multiple vendors out of that 22.9 every single month for all of the hosting, all of the building, the polishing, the refining, keeping it up 24/7, making sure there's no glitches, making sure that every time there's a new version of Roku, that all of our apps are updated. So that's programming time, that's all of that. So yes, are there hard costs? Absolutely, significant hard costs, all of which we absorbed up front prior to ever seeing a dime from the county.
Those get itemized?
No.
I, for one, think they should be itemized. Meaning, what are the hard costs of that 274 yearly? And what salary? I mean, I think these are real questions that we should have answers to. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. Would you be willing to submit those?
Yes, that's, yeah.
There's something wrong with this conversation. The,
Let's tell them, Mike.
no, I don't want this on the record. I want this on to the.
That's not an option.
Well, for one, I don't want to, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just struggling with this
It's
data.
highly offensive.
What's that?
It's highly offensive, John.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
To the podium, Jesse.
No, okay, then I'll pass.
It's not meant to be offensive at all. It's just, we're talking about clicks and data and maybe it's more the way the world is geared more than, and I'm just not geared that way in terms of understanding how money is spent. Like, there's no tangible data here other than clicks, and it's very hard to understand that
Yeah, no,
for me.
yeah, I wouldn't be Supervisor Onion.
I think one of the major points when we first started with this, though, was so that any business, no matter how big or small in Warren County, could be on their site and mentioned, and anyone can submit a video. It was open to everyone in Warren County, and that was one of the main things that we discussed. And that is what they do. Anybody can, any small town, you could have a sub shop and put your video on there at no cost.
Thank you for kind of bringing that back. That actually was the point
Yeah.
all along, was that every single business, large or small, has equal footing and equal access to this. It's free. It's free for consumers and it's free for the businesses. So no matter what kind of, or no matter how big or small your event, your attraction, or your business is, if it qualifies as a tourism and hospitality business, you now have a free 24/7 worldwide marketing presence. And whether you think it's worth it or not worth it is up to you. It's up to the individual, but that's the whole premise.
Thank you. Your question? Any more questions? I just want to clear up a little. I would not be offended, it's just my opinion, by a question from the committee. You have a good service, you have a good business you built, and the committee has questions, and we ask these questions to a lot of the events and businesses that we fund. So, you built a good business. To your point, there are click-throughs, which help clarify, what comes back to us. And a question for Ed, on the pillow cards, are you able to track how the pillow card, success, and are they available to other properties?
Yeah, so I just looked at that last night, and the current leader is the Holiday Inn Google app, is getting the most downloads. And yes, we are able to track those. So it's a lot of work to do that, insofar as we have to create a custom QR code. So just the pillow cards that we did for the Fort and for the Holiday Inn meant 4 custom QR codes. And which also means that when you go to get that printed, you're not doing a gigantic batch, so there's not a lot of scale of economy. And on a per card basis, it's kind of expensive. But yeah, we really, wanted to work with these initial 2 beta partners because of the number of visitors that they get, and because they're a little bit more sophisticated maybe than some of the other folks, to see, is this working? And so we're planning to meet with you and Sam and talk about how many downloads we're seeing.
If it's successful, moving forward,
Yep.
open it up to other.
Yeah, I mean, and we can scale it up. It's like I said, it's not cheap, but it's something that we're willing to do if it's successful, just like any other, paid advertising that we've done.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Thank you. Move on. No referrals, privilege of the floor and public comment. Supervisor Wild.
You anticipated this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. I'd like to talk about just very, very briefly about Lake George TV and where it came from. Because I was very much involved with the initial aspect of this also while I was still on this committee, but at this point I'm still not on. But this was basically a tool to take advantage of how technology was changing society, so to speak. So if you look at what I use a lot is Google Maps when I'm traveling and I'm looking for something to do, right? Well, you can search for this, you can search for that, you can search for whatever. The stuff that Jesse and Ed are putting together, in my mind, is the next step beyond that for us in Warren County. True, it is for any business that cares to be on that website can be on that, but it gives people the ability to kind of look at what you can find online in a different way. And I think it was really that point that they were trying to do originally was create something new, something different to help drive people to think about different things that they could do here in Warren County. I think they're working on accomplishing that, if not, getting there pretty quickly. And I know these guys get nervous when I stand up and talk about they're working on Lake George TV, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Yeah, we could look at costs, I guess, but what's most important, I think, is the testimonials that we didn't really go through on one of the last pages of the presentation. It was one of the questions that I had. What do your users think about this? Do they think there's value in this? And I think from what I've seen in the past, talking with these gentlemen and some other people, that there is some positive feedback from that, and it is adding some value to the community. So that aside, I just want to talk one more thing about this board of directors concept, right? I've been looking at Lake George, not Lake George, but Warren County's occupancy tax ever since I became a supervisor just about 8 years ago. I have numbers from when it started in 2007, I think it is, 2004, right? One of the things I look at is, are we improving? Or are we just treading water? In the 5 years since, just looking back 5 years from where we have, the OCC tax has increased $3.1 million. That's the biggest increase in 5 years that we've ever seen. A lot of it has to do with the work that our treasurer's department did with STRs. But if you look at that $3 million increase, and you take 25% of that, the towns are now getting almost $800,000 more a year. 800,000 over the last 5 years that the county is giving to the municipalities. And I know that there's a bunch of town supervisors on this committee that like to see their occupancy tax being delivered to them so they can do things in their municipalities. But $800,000 is a big increase over 5 years. So the question is, what are we getting for our money? And how do we evaluate that? I think we're treading water. I don't think we're doing much better than we've ever done. We've had increases, but are we really growing the tourism economy that accounts for 25% of Warren County's economy? This is big time business that we're talking about. And I'm hoping over the next few months or whatever, we can get together and talk about what are our metrics that we use. Is it purely sales tax? Is it purely occupancy tax? Or is there something else? I think from a corporate standpoint, the corporate world that I came from, there'd be a lot of questions about whether we're really moving the needle or whether we're treading water. And I'm just curious in terms of what this committee thinks. Are we treading water or are we moving forward? No answer today, but I'd like to see something like that within the next couple of committee meetings. Say, yes, we're moving forward, or no, we need to do something different. My belief is we need to do something different. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. Now, Christine?
I'd like to address Gina Misker and the tourism department here in Warren County. They helped me a lot. Gina did a lot for our little event on the last day. She went out and put some of our posters up in Lake George. We got a lot of visitors from Lake George to our little Smoky Ears Jamboree, which has been going on for 62 years. Not as old as I am, but still for 62 years. And our attendance popped up again this year. We did good. Tourism department made it there for a couple days and took a lot of things. So I want to say I'm grateful to them for helping us. And Vinny even showed up and saw that, you know, that's a tough event we've been doing for 62 years. It's all done with the volunteer fire department, which is dwindling in numbers. But I want to thank Gina and I want to thank tourism department for helping us out. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I also like to know where that money went to, because being a town supervisor for since 2006, I haven't seen a big increase in my oxy tax money. So I'd like to know where it's going. Somebody needs to show me who's getting it, but it's certainly not coming to my community. I can tell you that.
Just to answer your question, Kevin, the increase, it all goes 25% based on your occupancy tax that is attributed to your location. So that's how it's divided.
Well, I understand that.
Oh.
But I'm not getting the money that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not 800,000.
Yeah, 800,000 is in total.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, and Josh, I think this might get you fully, so, and I struggle with this. So the clicks, all of that stuff is great, and it does give you so much more exposure. What I've done in a business that I've run, we actually ask for a source when somebody books with us so that we can actually see the conversion from our marketing campaigns and our things like that. Do you guys have any idea of conversion? So that's a great statistics, but I think what you're asking is, what are they turning? You're also asking about costs, but I think another metric that's important is, all of this is great, but what is the actual uptick in the business? And there's a lot of businesses there. So it might, maybe you just take the top couple of ones, but that might also be an interesting metric.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just answer that.
Thank you. We ask for that all the time. And that's why we always provide feedback from partners, because that type of anecdotal feedback is usually the best that we can get. Anybody who knows the history from 3 years ago knows that there was a thought to have a fully implemented simple view system so that all reservations would go through the county. That has not come to fruition. Originally, that was going to be the destination URL for every single video on our platform. And then the answer would be yes, all of that would be tracked. But the county, and I perfectly understand why, because it's an extremely complex implementation. You would not get a huge amount of participation from businesses because it's a ton of work. And it also would cost the county a huge amount of money to do that. So if you implemented something like that, yes, we would have that. But otherwise, we're constantly asking for feedback. And you can see the quotes from our past feedback. Somebody like a Jim Cronin saying, yeah, somebody came in going, I was watching this video and can I play a round of golf? Sure. But it's up to them to ask those questions. Yeah, we can get people to the door, so to speak, in a virtual sense. But I think, any chamber, the tourism department will all tell you the same thing. We can see the click-throughs and that we're driving people to the businesses, but we don't have hard proof that that resulted in a sale. Wish we did, but nobody does. That's the reality of marketing today without a central system.
And I'm one business and
Yeah.
we just asked where you heard about it, so.
Yeah, I've asked
I
people
have
for
it.
affiliate links through BeFree and things like that. They don't have that. So if they did, I mean, for my 30 years of multi-channel marketing, I know how to do it. And we could do it on our end, but it's not under our control. It's under the business's control.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Any more? Motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Thomas.
Of all the things that we spend occupancy tax money on, I think this Look TV ranks right up, in the top groups.
Yeah,
It can affect everybody. All you gotta do is participate.
yeah.
So, to me, it's one of the better things it's what occupancy tax is for.
Thank you. One more question for me, and then we're gonna wrap up. But Jesse, you're on your, when you see your demographics, you got 65, 75-year-olds are the highest. Why is that? Are we not capturing the 30 to 40s, or is it just any input on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of it is that, well, first of all, we don't target anybody under 21.
Okay,
Yeah, we try not to, because then you run into age issues, privacy issues, children, marketing to children kind of thing, all that. But it really is a result of who's responding, and who is responding tends to be 45 to 75-year-olds in large part. We do get 20-year-olds. As a matter of fact, one of the campaigns, Starry Night, so the prizes in that campaign were 2 nights at Warrensburg RV Park, $100 gift card to Oscars, Adirondack Adventure Park, something else. I can't remember what the third one was. But that one actually had quite a few people in that 21 to 35-year-olds, because those are also campers. So that's also why we're trying to adjust some of these campaigns so that we don't just get, the older folks, so to speak. But we also draw some younger demographics as well. But yeah, there are numbers in there. It's just not as significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
very good. Thank you. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, I think also, when Octax started and we started down this road, there was always talk of an event should go 3 years and then they should work to be on their own. And I know that gets increasingly difficult, especially these days. But I think we've gotten totally away from that to where we're just funding events. And there's no discussion of, you need to take care of your own event. In Americade, I don't want to pick on Americade. It's an excellent event, but just add up the $50,000 for the last 22, 23 years. And, it's quite a lot of money.
And there seems to be no discussion that, 3 years or 5 years. After that, you need to kind of take care of your own event, fund it yourself,
Yeah,
or at least work that.
no, I've had those discussions before and, some of the more profitable events, we continue to fund and, yeah. And then, some of the bigger events will say that they can't survive without the occupancy tax. So that's the gray area that we try to
Right, but
find.
we don't know that because we don't get the breakdown of
Right.
where that 50,000 went. I mean,
Right.
in some ways, we could just write a check for 50,000, here you go,
Right.
here's your profit.
And I think you're bringing up a good point, and we've had those discussions. It's a good point.
Those events, we actually do in the reporting, all the events have to provide, all of their expenses as well as a pre-budget that they have and the post-budget. We do actually see where those dollars are and whether or not they make a profit or not.
And if an event's making 6 figures plus, do you continue to fund it? I'm just saying, I mean, that's a
Is
question.
that a question for me?
No, I think it leads into what Frank is asking,
Yeah.
but it's for another time.
Yeah, we've got, I remember Supervisor Kenny, Bill Kenny, it was always
Yep,
3 years and that's it.
yep.
Chair, if I could, that's actually part of the resolutions, but it's part of the resolutions that the board
Definitely
does
is.
not follow. That's compared to the 1% or 25%, which historically the board does follow. Because the board can make any decision at any time on how they're going to spend occupancy tax funds.
Good. Any more comment? Motion to adjourn? Motion made by Supervisor Runyon, seconded by Supervisor Pat.